Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Voyager and looked at the stars ahead. His ship had been flying through space for 3 months now. Earth had sent them to find new worlds and make friends with other species. Jake was 35 years old and had been in space for 10 years. He was tall, with brown hair and blue eyes. His crew trusted him because he always kept them safe. "Sir, we're picking up something on the scanner," said Amy Chen from her seat at the communications desk. She was young and smart, only 26 years old. Her black hair was tied back in a neat bun. Jake walked over to look at her screen. "What? Kinda something?" "Ships, sir. Big ones. They're coming our way fast." Lieutenant Tony Garcia looked up from his security station. He was a strong man with dark skin and serious eyes. "Should I put us on alert, Commander?" Jake thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let's see what they want first. Amy, try to talk to them." Amy pressed buttons on her control panel. "This is the USS Voyager calling unknown ships. We come in peace. Please respond." For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was female and spoke perfect English, though with a strange accent. "Human ship, you will stop your engines now. Prepare to be boarded. Do not resist." Dr. Lisa Park walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien life. Her red hair was messy because she had been working in her lab. "Did I hear that right? They speak our language?" "Seems like it," Jake said. He pressed a button to reply. "Unknown ships, this is Commander Morrison. We're on a peaceful mission. Can we talk about this?" "You will comply with our orders, human. Stop your ship now." Jake looked at his crew. Tony was ready to fight if needed. Amy looked nervous but stayed at her post. Lisa seemed excited to meet new aliens. Jake made his choice. "All stop," he ordered. The ship's engines went quiet. Minutes later, a huge ship appeared next to the Voyager. It was 3 times bigger and shaped like a crescent moon. Its hull was silver and seemed to shine with its own light. Smaller ships flew around it like guards. "Wow," Amy whispered. "That's beautiful." "And dangerous," Tony added, checking his weapons. A beam of light shot from the big ship to the Voyager. When it faded, 5 beings stood in the middle of the bridge. They had not been there before. The aliens looked almost human, but different. They were all female and very tall. Their skin was pale blue and their eyes were large and silver. They wore armor that looked like it was made from metal and cloth mixed together. 4 of them held weapons that glowed with energy. The 5th alien stepped forward. She was clearly their leader. She was the most beautiful woman Jake had ever seen, human or otherwise. She was almost 7 feet tall with long white hair that seemed to move on its own. Her silver eyes looked at Jake like she was studying him. "I am Queen Vastra of the Zalari Empire," she said. Her voice was strong and commanding. "You have entered our space without permission. This is a crime." Jake stepped forward. He was not afraid, though he probably should have been. "I'm Commander Jake Morrison of Earth. We didn't know this was your space. We're sorry for the mistake." Queen Vastra tilted her head. She seemed surprised by his calm tone. "You will kneel before your queen, human." "I'm sorry, but I don't kneel to anyone," Jake said politely. "Would you like to sit down? We can talk about this like civilized beings." The 4 guards raised their weapons. Queen Vastra held up a hand to stop them. Her silver eyes studied Jake, more carefully now. In all her years as queen, no one had ever refused to kneel before her. Other species always bowed down in fear when they met her. But this human stood straight and looked her in the eye. "You dare refuse me?" she asked. "I'm not refusing you anything important," Jake said. "I'm just not going to kneel. My species doesn't work that way. We believe all intelligent beings are equal." Dr. Park stepped forward. "Your Majesty, if I may, we've come a long way just to meet other species. We want to learn about your people and share knowledge." Queen Vastra looked at Lisa, then back at Jake. "Your people are either very brave or very foolish." "Maybe both," Jake admitted with a small smile. Something strange happened then. Queen Vastra almost smiled back. Just for a second, her serious face softened. Then she was all business again. "What is this ship's mission?" she demanded. "Exploration and diplomacy," Jake answered honestly. "Earth sent us to make contact with other civilizations. We want to be friends, not enemies. Friends? Queen Vastra said the word like it was foreign to her. The Zilari Empire does not make friends. We rule or we destroy. That is our way. One of the guards, a tall woman with scars on her face, spoke up. My queen, we should take their ship now. These humans could be spies. Quiet, Commander Thys, Queen Vastra said without looking at her guard. Her eyes stayed on Jake. Tell me, human commander, what makes you think your weak species has anything to offer the mighty Zilari? Jake thought about his answer carefully. He could see that Queen Vastra was testing him. She expected him to beg or make grand promises. Instead, he told the truth. We might be weaker than you in some ways, he said, but we're good at solving problems. We work together and help each other. Maybe we could help you solve some problems too. Queen Vastra's eyebrows went up. In 1,000 years of conquest, no species had ever offered to help the Zilari. They only begged for mercy. What problems do you think we have, human? Jake looked around the bridge at her guards and then back at her. I don't know yet, but everyone has problems, even queens. For a long moment, Queen Vastra said nothing. Then she spoke to her guards in their own language. It sounded like singing mixed with hissing. You interest me, Commander Morrison, she finally said in English. I will give you and your people 7 days. 7 days for what? To convince me that humanity deserves to exist as a free species. If you fail, we will add Earth to our empire. Your people will serve us or die. Jake felt his heart skip a beat, but he kept his face calm. And if we succeed, then we will see. Queen Vastra turned to leave, then stopped. You and a small group will come to my ship tomorrow. We will talk more. I'll be there, Jake promised. The aliens disappeared in another flash of light. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Well, Lisa said finally, that could have gone worse. Could it? Tony asked, checking to make sure his weapons still worked. Jake looked out at the alien ships surrounding them. 7 days to save humanity. He had faced impossible odds before, but nothing like this. Amy, send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we've made contact, and tell them we might need backup. As night cycle came to the ship, Jake stood alone in his quarters looking out at the stars. Tomorrow he would board an alien ship and try to save his entire species. He should have been scared. Instead, he found himself thinking about Queen Vastra's silver eyes and the way she had almost smiled. 7 days. It would have to be enough. The next morning, Jake got ready to visit the alien ship. He put on his best uniform and made sure his translation device was working. Dr. Lisa Park and Lieutenant Tony Garcia would come with him. Amy Chen would stay on the Voyager to keep contact with Earth. Remember, Jake told his crew, we're guests on their ship. Be polite, but don't bow to anyone. We represent all of humanity. Tony checked his sidearm one more time. What if this is a trap, Commander? Then we deal with it when it happens, Jake replied. Right now, talking is our best chance. The same beam of light that brought the aliens to their ship now took Jake and his team to Queen Vastra's vessel. When the light faded, they stood in a huge room with walls that seemed to be made of crystal and metal. Everything glowed with soft blue light. A Zilari woman with short silver hair met them. She wore robes instead of armor. I am Corral, Chief Scientist to Queen Vastra. Follow me. They walked through long hallways filled with amazing technology. Lisa kept looking around with wide eyes. This is incredible, she whispered to Jake. Their science is centuries ahead of ours. Corral heard her. Your species is young. You have much to learn. We'd like to learn, Lisa said eagerly. That's why we're here. Corral glanced at her but said nothing more. She led them to another large room where Queen Vastra waited. The queen sat on a throne that floated in the air. Around her stood her guards, including the scarred woman called Commander Thys. Commander Morrison, Queen Vastra said as they entered. You came. I said I would, Jake replied simply. Queen Vastra studied him for a moment, then gestured to chairs that rose from the floor. Sit. We have much to discuss. Jake and his team sat down. The chairs were surprisingly comfortable. "Tell me about Earth," Queen Vastra commanded. Jake thought about how to answer. "It's our home. About 7 billion people live there. We have many different cultures and languages. But we're learning to work together." 7 billion? Commander Theus laughed harshly. "Such a small number. The Zalari Empire rules over 200 billion subjects across 50 star systems." "Numbers don't tell the whole story," Jake said calmly. "What matters is what you do with the life you have." Queen Vastra leaned forward. "And what has humanity done with its life?" "We've survived," Jake answered. 100 years ago, we were fighting wars that almost destroyed our planet. Now we're here, exploring the stars and looking for friends." "Friends again," Queen Vastra said. "You keep using that word. The strong do not need friends. They take what they want." Lisa spoke up. "Your Majesty, may I ask a question?" Queen Vastra nodded. "What do the Zalari want? I mean, what's your goal? In conquering other species?" Commander Theus stepped forward angrily. "How dare you question our queen?" But Queen Vastra held up her hand. "It is a fair question." She looked at Lisa with interest. "We conquer because we must. The weak serve the strong. This is the natural order." "But why must you?" Lisa pressed gently. "What happens if you don't conquer?" For the first time, Queen Vastra hesitated. Coral, the scientist, exchanged a look with her queen. Jake noticed the hesitation. "There's something you're not telling us." Queen Vastra's silver eyes flashed with anger. "You forget yourself, human. I do not answer to you." "You're right," Jake admitted. "But if we're going to talk about humanity's future, shouldn't we understand what we're really talking about?" The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Coral stepped forward. "My queen, perhaps they should know. If we are to judge them fairly." Commander Theus glared at the scientist. Coral speaks out of turn. "Our secrets are not for alien ears." "Our secrets may be killing us," Coral said quietly. Queen Vastra stood up from her floating throne. She walked to a large window that showed the stars outside. "Leave us!" she commanded her guards. "My queen, that is not safe," Commander Theus protested. "Leave us!" Queen Vastra's voice was like thunder. The guards left reluctantly. Only Queen Vastra, Coral, and the 3 humans remained in the room. "What Coral says is true," Queen Vastra said, still looking out the window. "The Zalari are dying." Jake felt surprise. "Dying? But your empire is huge." "Our empire is vast, yes. But our people grow fewer each year. Zalari women struggle to have children. Many babies are born weak or sick. We have conquered worlds looking for answers, but nothing helps." Lisa leaned forward. "That's why you keep expanding. You're looking for a cure." Queen Vastra turned back to face them. For the first time, she looked tired instead of commanding. "We are a proud people. We do not admit weakness easily. But yes, we expand hoping to find species with medical knowledge that can save us." "What about the species you've conquered?" Jake asked. "Do they help willingly?" Coral answered this time. "Fear makes poor science. Slaves do not give their best work. We have learned much, but not enough." Jake stood up. "Your Majesty, what if there was another way?" "What do you mean? What if instead of conquering people, you worked with them? Shared knowledge instead of taking it?" Commander Theus's voice came from the doorway. "Impossible!" She had returned without permission. "The weak cannot be trusted to help the strong." Queen Vastra looked angry at the interruption, but Commander Theus continued. "My queen, these humans fill your head with foolish ideas. We should take their ship and their knowledge now." "I gave them 7 days," Queen Vastra said firmly. 7 days too many," Commander Theus replied. "They make you weak with their talk of friendship and cooperation." Jake could see tension building between the queen and her military commander. This was dangerous. "Commander Theus," he said calmly, "what if we could prove that cooperation works better than conquest?" The scarred woman laughed. "How would you prove such nonsense?" Jake looked at Queen Vastra. "Give us a problem your scientists can't solve. Let us try to help." Coral's eyes lit up with interest. "My queen, there is the matter of the energy crisis in Sector 7. "What energy crisis?" Lisa asked. Coral explained. 3 of our colony worlds are running out of power. Their suns are dying, and our technology cannot provide enough energy to keep the planets alive. We have tried everything. How long do they have? Jake asked. 6 months, maybe less. 50 million Zalari will die when the power fails. Lisa was already thinking. Jake, remember the solar collection arrays we designed for the Mars colonies? I was thinking the same thing, Jake replied. He turned to Queen Vastra. Your Majesty, we might have ideas that could help. But we'd need to work with your scientists as equals, not as slaves or prisoners. Queen Vastra looked at Koral, who nodded eagerly. Then she looked at Commander Theus, who shook her head in disgust. You would trust these aliens with Zalari lives? Commander Theus demanded. I would trust them to try, Queen Vastra said slowly. If they fail, we lose nothing we did not already expect to lose. And if they succeed? Commander Theus asked. Queen Vastra looked directly at Jake. If they succeed, perhaps I will listen more carefully to their ideas about cooperation. Jake felt hope growing in his chest. We'll need access to your technical data and the right to work directly with your scientists. Agreed, Queen Vastra said immediately. Commander Theus made an angry sound and stormed out of the room. She does not approve, Queen Vastra observed. Not everyone likes change, Jake replied, but sometimes change is the only way to survive. Queen Vastra studied him with those silver eyes. You are not like other species we have met, Commander. Morrison. Maybe that's because you haven't met us as equals before. Something passed between them in that moment. Jake felt it, and he could see that Queen Vastra felt it too. It was the beginning of understanding. Come, Queen Vastra said to Koral. Show our guests what they need to see. Give them full access to the technical data. As they prepared to leave the room, Queen Vastra caught Jake's arm gently. Do not make me regret this trust, human. I won't, Jake promised. But, Your Majesty, my name is Jake. You don't have to call me human. Queen Vastra almost smiled again. Jake, she said, testing the name. Very well, and you may call me Vastra. As they walked through the halls of the alien ship, Jake realized something had changed. They were no longer captor and prisoner. They were two people trying to solve a problem together. He just hoped it would be enough to save both their species. For 3 days, Jake and Lisa worked with Koral and her team of Zalari scientists. They studied the dying suns and the energy needs of the 3 colony worlds. The Zalari had amazing technology, but they thought in straight lines. Humans, Jake realized, thought around corners. What if we don't try to replace the sun's energy? Lisa suggested during one late-night work session. What if we collect energy from space itself? Koral looked confused. Space is empty. Not really, Lisa explained, drawing diagrams on the holographic display. Space is full of cosmic radiation, solar wind from other stars, even energy from the movement of planets. We just need to build collectors big enough and smart enough to gather it all. The Zalari scientists gathered around the display, their silver eyes wide with interest. They had never thought of space as an energy source. Jake found himself working more and more closely with Queen Vastra. She was incredibly smart and knew more about science than most humans, but she also knew about leadership and the weight of making decisions that affected billions of lives. On Earth, Jake told her one evening as they reviewed progress reports, we have a saying, no one person is smarter than all people working together. They were alone in Vastra's private study. The room was smaller than the throne room, with comfortable chairs and walls lined with books from dozens of different worlds. Your people truly believe this? Vastra asked. She had changed from her royal robes into simpler clothes. She looked younger and less threatening. Most of us do. We learned it the hard way through wars and mistakes. Working together always works better than fighting. Vastra was quiet for a moment. The Zalari have always believed that strength comes from one voice, one will. I am that voice for my people. That's a heavy burden, Jake said gently. It is. The burden I was born to carry. Vastra looked tired. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to share that weight with someone else. Jake felt something stir in his chest. Over the past few days, he had seen sides of Vastra that had nothing to do with being a queen. She was brilliant and funny when she forgot to be commanding. She cared deeply about her people and worried about making the right choices. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said softly. Vastra looked at him with those silver eyes. "What are you saying, Jake?" Before Jake could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed as an urgent voice spoke in the Zalari language. "What's happening?" Jake asked. Vastra was already standing, back in command mode. "Commander Theus is attempting a military coup. She believes I have been compromised by human influence." The door to the study burst open. Commander Theus entered with 6 armed soldiers. "Step away from the alien, my queen," Theus commanded. "You are no longer thinking clearly." Vastra moved protectively in front of Jake. "You forget yourself, Commander. I am still your queen." "You were my queen," Theus replied coldly. "But this human has poisoned your mind with weak ideas. The Zalari Empire needs strong leadership, not someone who bows to aliens." "I have never bowed to anyone," Vastra said firmly. "You have bowed to him." Theis pointed at Jake. "You treat him as an equal when he should be kneeling at your feet. You share our secrets with his kind. You have forgotten what it means to be Zalari." Jake stepped forward. "Commander Theus, this doesn't have to end in violence." Theus laughed harshly. "Even now you try to corrupt our queen with your soft words. Guards, arrest the human." The soldiers moved forward, but Vastra blocked their path. "Anyone who touches him answers to me." "You would choose an alien over your own people?" Theis demanded. "I choose what is best for my people," Vastra replied. "And what is best is finding new ways to solve old problems." Theis drew her energy weapon. "Then you are no longer fit to rule." What happened next was chaos. Theus fired at Vastra, but Jake pushed the queen aside and took the energy blast in his shoulder. He went down hard, his arm burning with pain. Vastra roared in anger, a sound like nothing Jake had ever heard. Her eyes blazed with silver fire as she attacked Theus with her bare hands. The 2 Zalari women fought with incredible speed and strength. Jake struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. Some of the soldiers looked uncertain now. They had not expected their queen to fight so fiercely for a human. "Your queen needs you," Jake told them. "Commander Theus is the one betraying the Zalari, not Vastra." The soldiers looked confused. Their loyalty was being torn in 2 directions. The fight between Vastra and Theus crashed through the study, destroying furniture and artwork. Both women were skilled fighters, but Theus was younger and had not been softened by palace life. Jake saw Theus gain the upper hand. The commander had her weapon raised to strike a killing blow against Vastra. Without thinking, Jake threw himself between them. Theus's energy blades sliced across his chest, but his momentum carried him into her, and they both went down. "Jake!" Vastra screamed. Theus rolled away and raised her weapon again, but this time the soldiers moved. They had seen their queen's pain when Jake was hurt. They had seen him willing to die to protect her. Whatever else he was, Jake was no threat to the Zalari. The soldiers surrounded Commander Theus. Reluctantly, she lowered her weapon. Vastra dropped to her knees beside Jake, who was bleeding badly from 2 energy weapon wounds. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you protect me?" Jake looked up at her through the pain. "Because He stopped, unsure if he should say what he was feeling. "Tell me," Vastra said, tears running down her blue cheeks. "Because I love you," Jake admitted. "I know we're different species, but I love you, Vastra. Not the queen, but you." The room went completely silent. Even Commander Theus stared in shock. Vastra touched Jake's face gently. "I love you too, Jake Morrison. I did not think such a thing was possible, but I do." Commander Theus made a disgusted sound. "This is madness. Love between species is impossible. It goes against nature, does it?" Corral's voice came from the doorway. The scientist entered with Dr. Park and Lieutenant Garcia, who had been working in the laboratories when the coup began. "My queen," Corral continued, "Dr. Park and I have made an interesting discovery while working on the energy problem." "This is not the time, Corral," Vastra said, still holding Jake's hand. "Actually, it might be exactly the right time," Lisa said excitedly. "Corral, show them what we found." Corral activated a holographic display. It showed DNA patterns from both humans and Zalari. While studying human science, Corral explained, Dr. Park suggested we compare our genetic structures. What we found was remarkable. The display showed the two DNA patterns slowly moving together. Where they touched, they matched perfectly in several key areas. Humans and Zalari share common genetic markers, Corral continued. More than that, our species could actually reproduce together. The children would be hybrids with the best traits of both races. Commander Thys stepped closer to the display. What are you saying? Lisa took over the explanation. We're saying that humans and Zalari might be able to solve each other's problems. You need genetic diversity to save your species. We need protection and advanced technology to grow as a civilization. Together we could both thrive. Jake struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain. That's what we've been trying to tell you, Thys. We don't have to be enemies. We can help each other. Commander Thys looked at the genetic display, then at Jake, and Vastra holding hands, then at her fellow soldiers who were no longer pointing weapons at anyone. This is all happening too fast, she said finally. How can we trust aliens we just met? The same way we're asking you to trust us, Jake replied. We take a chance on each other. Vastra stood up slowly. Commander Thys, you have served me faithfully for many years. I value your counsel. But I also trust my heart, and my heart tells me that Jake and his people offer us hope. Thys was quiet for a long time. Finally, she put away her weapon. If this is truly your will, my queen, then I will follow. But I will be watching these humans carefully. That's all we ask, Jake said. Vastra helped him to his feet. You need medical attention. I'll be fine, Jake said, though he was clearly not fine. You risked your life for me, Vastra said wonderingly. Twice. That's what people do for the ones they love, Jake replied. Vastra kissed him then, in front of everyone. It was gentle and careful because of his injuries, but it was also a promise. When they separated, she looked at her people. Spread the word throughout the fleet, she commanded. The 7-day deadline is canceled. We are no longer judging humanity. We are joining with them. Commander Thys bowed formally. It will be done, my queen. But what of the other noble houses? They will not all accept this alliance easily. Then we will convince them the same way. Jake convinced me, Vastra replied. We will show them that working together makes us stronger than standing alone. As medical teams arrived to treat Jake's wounds, he looked around the room at Zalari and humans working together to clean up the damage from the fight. Lisa and Corral were already back to discussing their energy solutions. Tony was helping the Zalari soldiers restore security systems. What are you thinking? Vastra asked, sitting beside him as the medics worked. I'm thinking this is just the beginning, Jake said. We have a lot of work to do. We? Vastra smiled. I like the sound of that. Jake smiled back, despite the pain. So do I. Outside the ship's windows, human and Zalari vessels moved closer together. No longer enemies, but allies beginning a new chapter in both their histories. 2 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of Vastra's flagship, watching the construction of massive energy collectors around the dying suns in Sector 7. The human Zalari engineering teams had worked together to build something neither species could have created alone. The first colony world came back online yesterday, Lisa reported, joining him at the window. 50 million lives saved. Jake smiled. His shoulder was mostly healed now, though it still ached when it rained. How are the other projects going? Better than we hoped. The Zalari learn fast, and their technology makes our ideas work 10 times better. Lisa paused. Jake, there's something else. Corral wants to show you and Queen Vastra something important. They found Vastra in the main laboratory with Corral and several other scientists. She looked up when Jake entered, and her face lit up with a smile that made his heart skip. Perfect timing, she said, moving to his side. Over the past 2 months, they had grown closer every day. The crew of both ships had gotten used to seeing their commander and the alien queen together. What's the big discovery? Jake asked. Corral activated a large holographic display. We have been studying the genetic compatibility between humans and Zalari more closely. The results are remarkable. The display showed detailed DNA structures and probability charts. Jake didn't understand all of it, but he could see excitement in everyone's faces. In simple terms, Dr. Park explained. Not only can humans and Zalari have children together, but those children would likely be healthier and stronger than either parent species alone. Vastra's hand found Jake's. Are you saying that hybrid children could solve the Zalari fertility crisis? More than that, Corral said excitedly. The children would have the best traits of both species. Human adaptability and creativity combined with Zalari longevity and mental abilities. Jake felt his throat go dry. Are you talking about us having children? The room went quiet. Everyone looked at Jake and Vastra. Would that be something you would want? Vastra asked softly. Jake looked into her silver eyes. They had talked about their future together, but always in careful terms. The idea of actually having children had seemed too impossible to discuss. Yes, he said simply, if it's what you want too. Vastra smiled, the kind of smile that made her look less like a queen and more like a woman in love. I want it very much. Lisa cleared her throat. There's more. We think this genetic compatibility isn't an accident. Our species might have shared ancestors millions of years ago. That would explain why we can understand each other so well, Jake mused. It would also explain why working together feels so natural, Vastra added. Commander Theus entered the laboratory. Over the past 2 months, she had slowly come to accept the alliance, though she still watched the humans carefully. My queen, we have a problem, she announced. Lord Wrath of the Third House is demanding an audience. His fleet has just arrived. Vastra's expression became serious. How many ships? 30 war vessels. He's not here to talk. Jake had heard about Lord Wrath. He was one of the most powerful Zalari nobles and had opposed Queen Vastra's policies for years. What does he want? Jake asked. To remove you from power, Theus said to Vastra. He believes your alliance with humans makes you unfit to rule the Empire. Vastra stood straighter, becoming the commanding queen again. Then we will have to convince him otherwise. My queen, Theus said carefully, Lord Wrath has the support of 5 other noble houses. That's nearly half the Imperial fleet. Civil war, Jake said quietly. It will not come to that, Vastra declared. I will speak with Wrath. Vastra, he's not going to listen to reason, Jake warned. Then what do you suggest? Jake thought for a moment. We show him what the Alliance has accomplished. Let him see the colonies we saved, the technologies we've developed together. And if that's not enough? Jake looked at the genetic displays still glowing around them. Then we show him the future. An hour later, Lord Wrath materialized on the bridge with his personal guard. He was an older Zalari male, which was unusual since their society was ruled by females. He had sharp features and cold gray eyes. Queen Vastra, he said without bowing, you have shamed our people long enough. Lord Wrath, Vastra replied calmly. Welcome to my ship. This is not a social visit. I am here to demand you end this foolish alliance with these primitive aliens. Jake stepped forward. Lord Wrath, I'm Commander Morrison. I'd like to show you what we've accomplished together. Wrath looked at Jake with disgust. I do not speak to lesser beings. Then you speak to me, Vastra said firmly. And I tell you that these lesser beings have saved 50 million Zalari lives in the past month. Temporary solutions to hide your weakness, Wrath dismissed. You have forgotten the Zalari way. We take what we need. We do not beg for help from aliens. We didn't beg, Jake said. We offered to work together as equals. Wrath laughed harshly. Equals? Your species has barely left its home planet. What could you possibly offer us? Corral stepped forward with a portable display unit. Perhaps this will interest you, Lord Wrath. She activated the device, showing the energy collectors around the dying suns. Human engineering combined with Zalari technology, something neither species could have built alone. Tricks and gadgets, Wrath said dismissively. Corral changed the display to show the genetic research. What about this? The possibility of saving our entire species. For the first time, Wrath looked genuinely interested. He studied the genetic compatibility data carefully. This is real? He asked. Very real, Dr. Park confirmed. Our species are genetically compatible. Hybrid children would be possible. Wrath looked at Jake and Vastra standing side by side. You mean to mate with this alien? I mean to marry the woman I love, Jake replied. And I mean to marry the man who risked his life to protect me and my people, Vastra added. Wrath was quiet for a long moment. Even if this genetic compatibility is real, it proves nothing. 1 or 2 hybrid children cannot save an entire species. Not 1 or 2, Vastra said quietly. But what if it were thousands? What if the alliance between our species led to a new generation that combined the best of both? Impossible. The other houses would never accept mass interbreeding with aliens. Jake had an idea. What if we started small? What if Vastra and I had children first to prove it could work? You would use your own children as test subjects? Wrath seemed horrified. We would give our children the gift of 2 heritages, Vastra corrected. They would be bridges between our peoples. Wrath paced the bridge, thinking hard. His guards watched, nervously, unsure what their lord would decide. The other houses will not accept this, he said finally. They will see it as contamination of pure Zalari bloodlines. Then they will condemn their own species to extinction, Koral said bluntly. The fertility crisis grows worse every year. Without new genetic material, we have perhaps 50 years before we can no longer reproduce at all. Wrath stopped pacing. 50 years? Perhaps less, Koral confirmed. The old lord looked around the bridge at humans and Zalari working together. For the first time, his expression was uncertain instead of angry. What exactly are you proposing? He asked Vastra. A formal alliance between the Zalari Empire and Earth. Shared technology, shared knowledge, shared future, and yes, eventually shared families. The noble houses will revolt. Some will, Vastra agreed. But others will see the wisdom of survival over pride. Wrath looked at Jake. And you, human, you would truly take a Zalari queen as your mate? I would be honored to, Jake replied honestly. Even knowing that your children would be different from both species, that they might face hatred from both sides, Jake took Vastra's hand. Our children will be loved, and maybe they'll help both sides learn to accept each other. Wrath was quiet for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful, instead of angry. I cannot speak for all the houses, but I will not oppose this alliance openly. That is the best I can offer. It's enough, Vastra said gratefully. Thank you, Lord Wrath. Do not thank me yet, Wrath warned. Lord Corex of the 5th House is already gathering ships. He will not be as reasonable as I am. After Wrath and his guards left, Jake and Vastra stood alone on the bridge. Are you sure about this? Jake asked. Marriage, children, changing the future of both our species? Vastra smiled and kissed him softly. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. Means war with your own people? Especially then, Vastra replied. Our children will inherit a better universe than the one we grew up in. I promise you that. Jake held her close, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Lord Corex was gathering ships for war. But here, in Vastra's arms, Jake felt only hope. Their children would be something new in the galaxy, something that had never existed before, and maybe, just maybe, they would be the key to peace between all species. When do we get married? Jake asked. Vastra laughed, the sound like music. As soon as we figure out how to combine human and Zalari wedding ceremonies. We'll figure it out, Jake said confidently. Together. 6 months after the wedding, Jake woke up to the sound of alarms. But these were not battle alarms. These were the medical alerts he had been waiting for. Jake! Vastra called from the next room. It's time! He jumped out of bed and ran to her side. She was sitting on the edge of their bed, one hand on her swollen belly, the other reaching for him. Are you sure? He asked, taking her hand. Very sure, she said with a mix of excitement and pain in her voice. Our children want to meet the universe. Jake helped her to the medical bay, where Dr. Park and Corral were already waiting with a team of human and Zalari medical experts. The past 9 months had been a careful balance of monitoring Vastra's health and preparing for the first hybrid births in galactic history. How are you feeling, Your Majesty? Dr. Park asked, as they helped Vastra onto the medical bed. Like I'm about to change everything, Vastra replied, squeezing Jake's hand hard. The birth was not easy. Hybrid pregnancies were new territory for both species' medicine. But after 12 hours of careful work, 2 cries filled the medical bay. A boy and a girl, Coral announced with tears in her silver eyes, both healthy and strong. Jake looked down at his son and daughter with wonder. They were beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Their skin was pale blue like their mother's, but their eyes were green like his own. Their hair was silver white and seemed to shimmer in the light. "What will we name them?" Vastra asked softly, holding their daughter while Jake held their son. "Alex and Emma," Jake said. "Alex Morrison Vastra and Emma Morrison Vastra, names that work in both languages." "Perfect," Vastra whispered. As they held their children, Commander Thys entered the medical bay. Her scarred face showed an expression Jake had never seen before. Wonder. "My queen, the children are beautiful," she said quietly. "May I?" Vastra handed Emma to Thys, who held the baby girl with surprising gentleness. "She's so small," Thys marveled. "But I can feel her mind already. She's strong." "They both are," Coral confirmed, checking the medical readings. "Their brain activity is remarkable. They seem to have inherited Zalari telepathic abilities and human problem-solving patterns." Dr. Park was equally excited. "Their immune systems are incredibly robust. They have resistance to diseases from both species." Over the next few days, news of the hybrid twins spread throughout both civilizations. Reactions were mixed, as expected. On Earth, most people were fascinated and supportive. Among the Zalari, opinions were sharply divided. Lord Corex arrived with his war fleet 3 days after the birth. "He demands to see the abominations with his own eyes," Commander Thys reported to Jake and Vastra in their quarters. Jake was holding Alex, who seemed to be studying his father's face with unusual intelligence for a newborn. Emma was sleeping, in Vastra's arms, occasionally making small telepathic sounds that the Zalari could hear but humans could not. "Let him come," Vastra decided. "It's time to end this fear and hatred." An hour later, Lord Corex stood in their family quarters with his guards. He was younger than Lord Wrath, with the typical Zalari arrogance that Jake remembered from their first encounters with the species. "So these are the mongrel children," Corex said coldly. "These are our children," Jake replied calmly. "Alex and Emma." Corex stepped closer to examine the babies. "They look more alien than Zalari." "They look like the future," Vastra said firmly. "The future?" Corex laughed. "These creatures will never be accepted by pure Zalari. They will be outcasts from both species." As if responding to his harsh words, Emma opened her eyes and looked directly at Lord Corex. Her green eyes seemed to glow with inner light. Then, impossibly, she smiled at him. Corex stepped back as if he had been struck. "Did you see that?" "See? What?" Jake asked. She touched my mind. I felt peace, joy, love." Corex looked confused and frightened. "How is that possible? She's only days old." Coral had entered quietly during the conversation. "The children's telepathic abilities are far beyond normal Zalari infants. They seem to project emotions as well as receive them." Alex chose that moment to make a small sound and reach toward Lord Corex with tiny hands. Without thinking, Corex reached back, letting the baby boy grab his finger. The change in the Zalari Lord's face was dramatic. His harsh expression softened into wonder. "He's so strong," Corex whispered. "I can feel his curiosity, his love for everything around him." "That's what we've been trying to tell everyone," Jake said gently. "These children aren't abominations. They're hope." Corex held Alex's tiny hand for several more seconds, then gently pulled away. "I don't understand what I felt." "You felt what love could create when it crosses the boundaries between species," Vastra explained. "Our children carry the best of both worlds. But the practical problems remain," Corex said, though his voice was no longer harsh. "How can they find their place in either society?" "They'll create their own place," Jake replied. "And maybe help. Both societies find a better way to exist together." Emma made another small telepathic sound, and this time even Jake could sense something. A feeling of peace and contentment that seemed to fill the room. "Even if it She's affecting all of us, Dr. Park observed with scientific fascination. Her telepathic projections work on humans too, even though we don't normally have that ability. Corex looked around the room at humans and Zalari standing. Together, all focused on the two small children who represented so much hope and change. I came here to demand you end this alliance, he said slowly. I came to insist these children be hidden away where they could not contaminate our pure bloodlines. And now? Vastra asked. Corex was quiet for a long moment. Now I think I understand what you saw in each other. These children, they're not just hybrid beings. They're something entirely new. Does that change your opposition to the alliance? Jake asked hopefully. I cannot speak for all my followers, Corex admitted, but I will not stand in the way of this future, not after what I felt from them. After Corex left, Jake and Vastra sat quietly with their children. Do you think it will be enough? Jake asked. Will there be peace between our peoples? Not immediately, Vastra replied honestly. Change takes time. But Alex and Emma are proof that it's possible. As if to agree with their mother, both babies made small, contented sounds. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of the new space station that served as headquarters for the human Zalari Cooperative. Alex was in his arms, babbling in what sounded like a mixture of English and Zalari. Emma was with Vastra, practicing her early telepathic abilities by making colored lights appear in the air. The first mixed colony ship launches tomorrow, Lisa reported, joining them at the window. 500 human families and 500 Zalari families all volunteering to build a new world together. Any more protests from the holdout houses? Jake asked. A few, but they're losing support. It's hard to argue against success. And they had been successful. The Human-Zalari Alliance had solved energy crises, cured diseases, and developed technologies that benefited both species. More importantly, there had been 53 more hybrid births in the past 6 months, all healthy and showing the same remarkable abilities as Alex and Emma. Commander Morrison, a young Zalari woman approached. Queen Vastra asked me to tell you that the council session is ready to begin. Jake handed Alex to Lisa and walked to the council chambers where representatives from both species were gathered. Vastra was at the head of the long table, no longer sitting on a floating throne, but in a chair identical to all the others. The motion before us today, she announced, is the formal establishment of the Morrison-Vastra Institute for Interspecies Relations. Jake took his seat beside his wife. The institute will train diplomats from all species in the techniques that made our alliance successful. We've already received requests from 12 different civilizations, added Koral, who had become the institute's first director. Commander Thiss, now Admiral Thiss of the Cooperative Defense Force, stood up. I never thought I would say this, but the human approach to cooperation has made us stronger than we ever were through conquest. As the council voted to approve the institute, Jake felt a small hand tug at his sleeve. Alex had crawled under the table and was now trying to climb into his lap. I think someone wants to participate in galactic politics, Vastra observed with amusement. Jake picked up his son, who immediately reached toward the holographic display showing star maps of allied systems. Alex babbled something in his hybrid language, and the display changed, showing new connections between the worlds. Did he just, Jake started to ask, interface with the computer telepathically? Koral finished. Yes. Emma did the same thing yesterday. Their abilities continue to surprise us. Emma appeared in the doorway, carried by Dr. Park. The little girl was reaching toward her brother, and where their hands nearly touched, small sparkles of light appeared in the air. They're growing so fast, Vastra murmured. And they're growing up in a universe where humans and Zalari work together, Jake added, where love matters more than power. As the council session continued around them, Jake held Alex while Vastra held Emma. The twins looked at each other across the table and seemed to communicate in ways that even the telepathic Zalari couldn't fully understand. What do you think they're saying to each other? Jake whispered to Vastra. I think they're planning how to make the galaxy an even better place, she whispered back. Looking at his children, Jake believed she was right. Alex and Emma were just the beginning. They represented a new way of thinking about differences between species, about cooperation over conflict, about love over fear. The alien queen had demanded submission. Instead, she had found partnership. She had expected conquest, but discovered cooperation. And now, looking at the children playing between their parents during a meeting that would shape the future of multiple civilizations, it was clear that love had indeed conquered all. Alex looked up at his father with those remarkable green eyes and smiled. Emma reached toward her mother with tiny hands that sparkled with telepathic energy. And in that moment, Jake knew that the future would be bright for all the species in the galaxy. The twins gurgled happily, as if they knew they were the beginning of something wonderful.